This is Fred Beck from Fred Talks Fighting. Today I'm very lucky to be joined by Todd Grisham. So thank you very much for coming on, Todd.
Hey, what's up, Fred? How you doing? How's London?
Yeah, it's all good here. It's been raining quite a lot. Just quite, well, everyone knows England for raining. But you know what? Everyone's always saying, oh, it rains the whole time in England. It doesn't rain as much as most people think. So it's not that bad. But what's been going on with you, Todd?
Well, I'm in Las Vegas where it's not raining because it's the desert, but I'm getting ready. There's my little view. I'm at the Mandalay Bay. There's the brand
Wow.
new Raiders football stadium over there. Can you see it?
Yeah, that's massive.
So, yeah, getting ready for the fight this weekend, Linares and Haney. It's going to be great.
Yeah, so you're calling that fight with Chris Mannix or Sergio Mora. So as a commentator, how much kind of revision do you kind of do before the fights, or does someone already do it for you?
Well, we get like kind of a research packet. So we have someone that kind of does some research for us that gets all the, CompuBox numbers and all the fighter statistics and all that stuff. I usually go back and watch a few fights, and then actually here in a couple hours, we interview the fighters. So we each get, or we get about 20 minutes with each fighter. So, I'll listen to some old interviews, that sort of stuff. It depends on which fight, but I usually have plenty of information at my disposal. Some of the undercard fights are a little different. You have to dig a little deeper. But for the main event, co-main, and whatever, those fights, I usually have plenty of information to go through and get prepared.
That's quite nice. I remember speaking to Andy Clark, who commentates at Sky, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we have to do a revision for our fights." So that's quite nice. Someone else does it for you. And what's it been like now? We finally got fans back. You know, for the Canelo fight, you had 70,000. Must be brilliant. But before that, there have been zero people in attendance, or very few. What's it like commentating with and without fans? Because normally I suppose they can hear you if there's no fans there.
Yeah, well, luckily I worked at WWE for 8 years, World Wrestling Entertainment, and every week they had a show called Sunday Night Heat when I worked there. So they would tape Raw live or do Raw live, do SmackDown, and then before those shows aired, they tape a show, tape 5 or 6 wrestling matches, and then at the end of the week, I'd go back to the studio and call the matches. So for 8 years, once a week, 3 matches. That's what through 150. That's literally, I called 1,000 wrestling matches with no crowd in a booth. So I was used to kind of not manufacturing the energy, but like trying to, pretend that I was there with fans. So I did that for so long that it really doesn't phase me that much. Now, obviously, when you're in a crowd with 70,000 people in Dallas, that's completely different. But the energy was just off the charts for that. But I'm pretty comfortable calling it with or without fans, but obviously you want the fans there if you can have them.
Yeah, I know. I think it gives a lot of fighters a boost, for the commentary a boost as well. And you say that, if just go back a few minutes, you were saying that you don't do much revision for the fighters. As a commentator and as a pundit, what do you do when you're not commentating fights?
Like in my life?
Yeah, well, like what do you do else's work? Because surely like a fight only happen like twice a month.
Oh, well, I do. I work for CBS Sports in America, which is kind of like a highlight show, sort of like Sports Center. I'm not sure if you heard of that. So I've done that. I also do. I'm working a lot on this video game, ESBC Esports Boxing Club, signing fighters. So I've been really busy with that. And I have 3 daughters. So you can imagine that they take up a lot of my time. So I'm always busy doing something. That's for sure.
Yeah, being a parent in lockdown doesn't sound. It sounds nice, but then after first few weeks of that, it sound quite hard work. So when I always listen to the zone commentary, I notice it kind of bring a new swing to it. It's kind of more of an informal commentary, so more chatty. Whose idea was that? Is that kind of your idea, or is that kind of how the zone wants it to be?
A little of both. I mean, if they specifically said, we don't want you doing that, we probably wouldn't do it. But to me, especially on undercard fights, when you've got a guy who's 19-0 facing a guy who's 4-12, like how much seriousness and how much attention do you need to apply to the fight when you know the outcome pretty much already? So to me, it's just, 2 guys sitting at a sports pub watching a football game and just talking amongst each other. One happens to be the former junior welterweight champion world, Sergio Mora. I happen to have called probably 3,000 fights in my life, and Chris Mannix has been covering the sport for 2 decades. So that's just kind of how we play it. Now, when it gets to the bigger fights of the night, the main event, sometimes the co-main event, we'll keep it more serious and more formal. But especially on those earlier fights, we just try to have a little fun with it and make it entertaining and just not so serious.
Yeah, I don't mind it. It's kind of, I always see people on Twitter kind of dissing it. I guess it's kind of like, what's it called? You either love it or you hate it. I quite like watching it, listening
Yeah.
to it. Sorry.
Well, you can never gauge Twitter. You're never going to go on Twitter ever and say, look, everyone loves what they're doing. No one, if you go to a restaurant and you're like, hey, that's a pretty good meal, you're not going to write a note to the manager and say, hey, the meal was good. But if you don't like the meal, that meal was terrible. You get on Twitter, that meal was horrible, right? So I think more people like things than, in my mind, you can tell if you had a good broadcast by how few hate tweets you get. If you only get like 100, you did a great job. If you get 10,000, well, maybe you need to look at what you did.
Yeah, Twitter is quite toxic. I would say. You're saying how much experience you have there. You've also worked with the UFC. What's the difference you notice between being a commentator for the UFC and then being a commentator for boxing?
Well, there's a lot. First of all, the UFC, with boxing, it's just the hands. You're just watching hands the whole time. With UFC, you're watching everything. A strike can come from anywhere, especially when they go to the ground. When they would go to the ground, I was calling UFC. That's not really my forte. So I would just, if I'm calling a fight with Michael Bisping, what am I going to say that he can't say? So I'll just shut up when they're on the ground. Now, when they stand up or when they're going for the finish, that's kind of when I do my thing. Similar with boxing, I try and stay out of the X's and O's. Like, what am I going to say that Sergio Mora wouldn't, am I going to talk about the guy's footwork and how he needs to improve footwork when we got one of the best, footwork guys in the world next to me? So I try and stay in my lane. UFC was a lot more formal. They're doing an event a week and it's usually the same formulas. 8 matches, starts here. This is what the arena is going to look like. This is what the octagon is going to be. Everything looks pretty much the same all the time. With boxing, every event's a little different. The ring looks different. The ropes are different. The crowd's different. The promoter's different. The fight. It's kind of a potluck dinner. I don't know if you know what that is in England. In America, potluck dinner. After church, everybody just brings something. They put them on a table and everybody just eats. You don't know what you're going to get. So with UFC, you know exactly what you're getting. With boxing, you never know what you're getting.
Yeah, I see what you mean, especially in the zone commentary. You might be asking one of your mates, I might be asking Sergio Mora for a slice of pizza. You've also worked with Teddy Atlas. You're saying what you worked there, Michael Bisping, UFC Hall of Famer. You've also worked with Teddy Atlas. You're a very good analyst. I don't know why Dazn or Sky Sports, they should probably have him on the commentary as well. But what was it like working with Teddy at, I think it was Friday Night Fights?
I learned a lot from Teddy. Teddy's great. There's no doubt about it. He's really, really good at breaking down video and breaking down the minute details of stuff. He's also really good at complaining about referees and judges. So that was one of his things. But he's a busy guy. He's still training. I know he's putting out training videos right now. He hosts a podcast. It's very successful. So Teddy's very busy. So don't feel bad for Teddy.
I know. I remember listening to his podcast. He was having a go at Bloom. I was listening to his podcast the other day. Yeah, he's having a go at all the English fans are being.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, I was like, wow. Yeah. So you were saying earlier about only going to Esports Boxing Club because every time I go on Twitter, it's something new on about it. Just the thing is, Sunday night in the UK must have been about my lunchtime in Las Vegas. You announced that Canelo Alvarez would be joining the game, and now he's introducing the game. How many more fighter announcements have you got coming up?
We don't have any scheduled right now. If we did a fighter announcement for every fighter we signed, we'd do one a day. So like right now we have probably about 12 to 13 different fighters that we've signed since the Canelo show and the show before that last show. So, we'll make some announcements shortly. I know a lot of people really want to see more gameplay. So right now that's kind of the emphasis for the next possible release would be more gameplay footage, things like that. But we've got a couple of, we got some announcements in the chamber ready to come out soon enough. Don't worry. We've already signed over 200 fighters. So we're running out of bodies here, but we've got some coming up.
Do you think you might have in the game like DLCs where, say the game's been released, but you've got fighters who might come into the game? Do you think you might have DLCs where you have to pay, like people might have to buy the game and then pay for the extra fighters? Do you think that might be a possibility?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah, I've seen pretty much everyone online has been asking for Mike Tyson. I know that you guys probably can't release anything, but say we'll do a percentage, say. So 1% being not much of a chance, 100% being he's in. What percentage do you think that you'll get Mike Tyson in the game?
80.
80. Oh, that's pretty good then.
Well, hey, we'll see. It's a 20% chance you get knocked out with Mike Tyson. You can't take any trust. But listen, we've talked to almost pretty much every single fighter in the world, or talk to their people, or talk to their people's people, or talk to their friend's friend of their friend. It's very difficult to make progress on certain fighters. Others, You sign them in 5 minutes. Oh my God, video game, and I'm getting paid. Oh my God, yeah, where do I sign? Other ones, it takes much, much more time. And as you can imagine, the mega stars usually take a lot of time. So anyone of that caliber fighter that we haven't signed yet, we're either talking to them, have talked to them, or will be talking to them.
I can imagine once the game actually comes out and everyone's playing it, more for the fighters that aren't in the game, they'll probably want to come into the game because of how good it would be. I saw that you promoted Ludabella in the game because of the career mode. Do you think Eddie Hearn might be in it then?
Eddie Hearn. I thought he was inventing his own video game. Didn't he say something like that? He has his own video game coming out soon. I guess if he doesn't have that, sure, we'd love to talk to Eddie, get Matchroom in there. We've got tons of Matchroom fighters in there, most notably like Katie Taylor. We signed her a couple weeks ago, so we're really excited about her. So we've got a lot of Matchroom fighters, and we have a lot of promoters in the game. We're talking to everybody. So still time, still a few months away from anything coming out. So we've got ample opportunity to get certain people in the game. But again, we're scanning roughly 200 fighters. So these things take some time. But we'll get everybody that people want, hopefully, or at least most of them.
Yeah, I know. 200 fighters and scanning all of them must take a while. Well, one of the questions I've got, which I think is quite curious, is which version of the fighter would you actually put in the game? For example, say you had Floyd Mayweather. I don't know if you do, but say if you had Floyd Mayweather, would you have the pretty boy version of him, or would you have the money made version of him? Which kind of era would you have, or do you have two?
I don't know. That's hey, why not have them both? I don't know. Do you want fat Elvis or skinny Elvis? That's how it is in Vegas. You don't know which one you're going to get. That's all up to the development team and to the fighter's contract, what they signed with. And, you could even do that with Terrence Crawford. Is it 31-year-old Terrence Crawford, or is it 22-year-old Terrence Crawford? So you can play that game all night long. But for the most part, the fighter you will see in the game is the fighter in their prime.
And that's awesome. I mean, I guess that's the best time to put the fighter in the game.
But some would say Floyd had his prime his whole career. So it's a good question. That I don't know but we have not signed Floyd Mayweather. Don't get anything started. So we'll see.
I spoke to Ryan Rhodes about the game. Ryan's really into it, really enthusiastic about it. He's a really nice guy, Ryan. He said
Ryan Rhodes, you're talking about?
Yeah, Ryan Rhodes.
Yeah.
Christmas time is he told me it's around Christmas time, which is kind of the release date. Is that still the case?
Hey, if Ryan Rhodes said it, it has to be true, right? He's right. He lives right there next to the studios over in Sheffield. The thing with the release date, we're almost a victim of our own success because you sign someone like Canelo. Well, if you got to get Canelo scanned, you got to get him in his bodysuit, you got to get all the movements, you got to tweak it, so to build just Canelo's character and make it mint, it takes a month, right?
Oh wow.
Well, and then you got to do Roy Jones, and you got to, the team is only so big. So the more big name fighters we sign, sometimes it bumps the day to the game back a little bit because no one wants to buy the game and be like, where the hell's Canelo Alvarez? Oh, well, he's coming soon. We got to have them all in there. So it looks like, late this year is the soft target date.
Yeah, Christmas time is probably the best time to release it. But then I see what you mean, a victim of your own success. Getting even more fighters is going to make it kind of perfect. We've only got 2 questions left and take too much of time. But do you think there'll be a beta version of the game before the full official game comes out?
That I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, beta is like kind of like a demo of the game. You mentioned earlier that you worked for WWE. I looked you up on YouTube the other day today, and I typed WWE, and you got AA'd by John Cena. What was that like?
Well, it's it's coming, right? Because you talked about you don't really rehearse it because it does hurt. But I just remember you're just thinking, don't mess up. He's going to grab me by my right arm and just let him do what he's got to do. Don't pull back. Don't flinch. Don't look, So it's almost acting. So once he got me up on his shoulders, I was almost relieved because I didn't screw this part up and he's so strong. Now he can do with me whatever he wants to. So he flipped me over and then I just had to act dead for about 3 minutes until they went to commercial.
What did they do behind the scenes before it happens? They're like, I'm going to lift you up, or is it just straight into it?
No, you do a rehearsal early in the day and they're like, all right, Todd, ask this question, ask this. John's going to do his little thing. And then Todd at the end, he's going to give, at the time it was called an FU. He's going to give you an FU. And John's like, all right, well, look, I'm going to grab you on this arm. Just don't do the blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, no problem. It's almost like a dance, listen, I'm going to do the spin. You're going to step over here. We hold hands and that's it.
I mean, that's awesome. Not many people can say they've been AA'd by John Cena. All right, Todd.
I'll tell you what hurt even worse. You can find it. Mickey James. She's a diva. I had to interview her backstage, and she slapped me in the face. Well,
not more.
There's a thing called in wrestling called selling, where if I'm Shawn Michaels and someone's going to slap me, they know, because Shawn Michaels been doing it for 20 years. They know even if they barely touch him, hit him hard, he's going to sell it perfect, right? Well, they don't trust me. I'm just some 27 local yokel, right? So they tell Mickey basically slap the hell out of him, you know? So they tell me, listen, when she's about to slap you, clench your jaw real tight, because if you leave it open and she hits you here, she could break your jaw. And I'm like, from a slap, come on. Bro, watch the video. She slapped me. I still feel it. She got me more in the neck, bro. But that hurt like, oh. And then like if you watch one of these like Mexican novellas or even American like soap operas, right before a commercial break, like let's say one of the women goes up to the men and says, I want a divorce. I'm leaving you. And walks out of the room. And then they show the guy's face and he's just like, and the camera stays on his face and they fade to commercial. So basically they said, look, after she slaps you, we're going to stay on you for a few seconds before we go to commercial. So, sell it a little bit. Okay. Tears are welling up in my eyes. I'm about to start crying. I'm like, oh my God. We go to break and everyone's like, you sold that great. Way to go. And I'm like, sold it great. I need a medic. Get me to the hospital, bro. I think I got a concussion. So she got me good, brother. It's on YouTube somewhere.
And he didn't say, oh, we'll get another person to slap you next week. So that's probably one of the better things. All right. Todd,
the good thing was, I think it was actually after the attitude adjustment that I got, they're like, well, since you're just a little measly little announcer, you obviously, if this happened in real life, you'd be in the hospital. So they gave me the next week of work off. Like I was on paid sick leave, even though I wasn't even hurt. But I was like, all right, I'll take it. Todd Grisham could not be with us today. He's recovering from his injuries after last week's assault from John Cena, that sort of thing.
It's kind of best of two worlds then. It sounds awesome. All right, Todd, it's been great talking to you today. Really enjoyed it. And where can people find you on social media
at? On Twitter, at Grisham Fights, and on Instagram, at Todd Grisham.
All right, Todd, thank you so much for your time.
It was fun, Fred. Enjoy watching you. Keep it up.